I've got some material from Ouspensky today. The first one comes from a question and answer session. The student asks him, does it all depend on consciousness? Ouspensky says, all work is really concentrated on consciousness. In work on centers, we only try to stop definitely wrong work. There are no exercises to increase the work of centers. All the work is on consciousness. When consciousness is increased, centers will adapt. The wrong work of centers must be stopped, for if we remained abnormal and became conscious, our centers would go mad. They would not be able to stand it. But it cannot happen. One cannot become conscious unconsciously. People often ask, what does one gain by becoming conscious? This is because they do not know what the results of consciousness is. When we are conscious, we become connected with higher centers, and then the whole picture changes. Okay, so let me go through this. There are a lot of errors here. I guess it's easy for me, having been taught by my own teacher. Ouspensky says that all work is really concentrated on consciousness, by which he means like a higher state. But that's not true. Gurdjieff was very clear that he considered the lower centers to be malfunctioning. And a lot of the work that Gurdjieff did was to improve the performance of the lower centers. He did a lot of work with the moving center, through the movements, through physical work, and likewise with the movements and music, emotional work, and he'd get students to memorize all sorts of things and do mental exercises. So Gurdjieff was definitely trying to do specific work to improve the functioning of centers. So Ouspensky is obviously wrong here. And the reason is that it's not that spiritual realization and evolution has been hidden from you. No, you are what you are. Nobody can hide anything from you, really. You are what you are, you function how you function. If you want to function better, you're going to have to damn well earn it. Because what is being proposed here is your evolution. It's not something that nature's going to do on its own in 500,000 years. What Gurdjieff is proposing is that you do it now, by your own hand. It's not going to come easily. So Ouspensky thought there was some sort of trick. There's no trick. The trick is to understand and then spend every minute of the rest of your life working on it. That's the trick. The trick is to work furiously. Work magnificently. Work as if your whole existence depended on it. And work does not mean sitting on your ass reading. Gurdjieff's teaching is not a book club. Stand up. And Ouspensky says here, when consciousness is increased, centers will adapt. This reminds me very much of Eastern kind of meditation, where you have some sort of spiritual state that you can invoke through various practices, and so that spiritual state comes on, but the rest of your functioning, your subconscious, is not connected to it. And so many Indian sages, they sit on a mountain and their body is sick because it's full of vasanas, full of subconscious negativity. They still have desires and all sorts of things, and the way they deal with that is to live in isolation. And it's okay, I don't blame anybody, because life for human beings is very difficult. I don't blame anybody who does anything. However, what Gurdjieff was trying to help mankind do is to regain the ordinary, full development, which is of everything, not just spiritual states, but spiritual states, although you can trigger them artificially, they should flow out of the evolution of your lower centers. The reason why realized beings have the lifespan more or less the same as everybody else is because their lower centers are not in a good state, and they're still full of impurities, and it's the impurities that kill them. But we assume that they're reborn in a higher world, so what they have done is already virtually impossible. Then Ouspensky says, people often ask, what does one gain by becoming conscious? I think this word conscious, especially nowadays, is just needs to be thrown away. It's sad. When I was young, the word conscious was very rarely used, and most often used to mean some kind of very high state of realization. But the way human beings are now, they use the word conscious for everything. Conscious food, conscious carrots, conscious toilet, conscious picking your nose. Human beings always do that. I was looking at chapter 9 of In Search of the Miraculous. Now this is this chapter, you could write several books about, and it has quite complicated information about the ray of creation, taking 3 octaves together, and then it has information about the hydrogens with huge tables of hydrogens, and information about various shocks. And this is all stuffed into one chapter and not very well explained. I'll just read out the beginning of that chapter just to bring a flavor of it. It says, at one lecture, G began to draw the diagram of the universe in an entirely new way. So far we have spoken of the forces that create worlds, he said, of the process of creation proceeding from the Absolute. We will now speak of the processes which take place in the already created and existing world. But you must remember that the process of creation never stops. Although on a planetary scale, growth proceeds so slowly that if we reckon it in our time, planetary conditions can be regarded as permanent for us. Now, there's certainly very many profound ideas. One here is that the Absolute unfolds a ray of creation. We are born here in it. And in order to work our way back, a certain knitting together has to be done through our own returning octave. And the result of that is that the power of the Absolute flows through us, through our own line, through our own self-development. When you develop your centers, which means your functions, It allows the power of the Absolute to be harnessed inside of you, because you can do. Your moving center harnesses the power of the Absolute because you have chosen to use it. And your emotional center harnesses the power of the Absolute. That white light pulses through you because you have chosen to use your functions, and so on. And there is no way for that power to flow through you unless you become a master of your faculties, of your abilities. A Renaissance man who can do anything. That's what Gurdjieff was teaching us through his own life. I wonder how many people who consider themselves to be his student live like that. And regardless of Gurdjieff, it must be a beautiful way to live. To enjoy your mind, but the kind of mind that asks and then answers questions and then applies those answers. That is a beautiful spirit, somebody like that.